Appreciate y'all coming out. This is an important issue for St. Bernard Parish tonight. What we want to do is make sure that, we're here to listen to questions and find out what's on our citizens' minds, because you guys are seeing this in the paper, you're seeing it on the news, and we want to make sure that you guys have all the information that we have, so you know what we're doing on your behalf and what are some of the complicated issues that we're dealing with. I'm on a microphone because we're taping this. This is not because everybody knows I could talk to y'all without this microphone. And when we ask questions, we'll have a microphone. That way the people at home will be able to hear the questions when we play this back. So what we're going to do is play a video, a 13-minute video that we put together that's playing on Channel 76 to try and explain this issue in video format, and then we'll discuss it after. Rachel, can you start it?
My name is Tim Duty. I'm from Arabi, Louisiana. I was the former president of the Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority East, appointed first right after Katrina by Governor Kathleen Blanco, and then the second time I was appointed was by Governor Bobby Jindal. The Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority East is the board that governs 3 distinct levee districts: the East Jeff Levee District, the Orleans Levee District, and the Lake Borgne Basin Levee District, which is St. Bernard's Levee District. And they act as a common board and make all the decisions and are responsible for all the decisions of what those 3 independent levee districts do.
The Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority East was created post-Katrina so parishes could join forces and have better storm protection amongst one another. The authority was tasked with 2 responsibilities: operating and maintaining a perimeter levee system, as well as a drainage portion. The organization is funded by a property tax, also referred to as a millage. While most flood authorities charge an equal millage per parish, the Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority East charges disproportionate millages, with St. Bernard Parish taking the biggest hit.
We have about 5% of the property value in this region. We have about 5% of the population of this region. We should be paying about 5% of the cost of the levee system that protects that region. 5% of the cost represents somewhere between $800,000 and $1 million. What the Southeast Levee Protection Authority East is saying is that they want all of the $3.5 million that we pay in here in St. Bernard Parish to go to funding the levee system. That is 100% unacceptable to this administration.
What they're attempting to do is charge St. Bernard effectively 8 mills in property tax to operate and maintain this system, while Orleans and Jefferson Parish will pay roughly 2.3 mills each. And that's just an unfair allocation of expense. It doesn't work that way in any other levee district. They don't charge one parish more than the other because they have more miles of levee. Nobody else does it this way, no one.
I think it's important for people to understand that the state of Louisiana, through a vote, statewide, voted to regionalize the system in Southeast Louisiana. We have a flood authority right now that's not acting like a regional authority. They have the authority in 3 separate parishes, and they're funding it like 3 separate parishes.
The 3 districts together collect about $60 million in taxes. They have about $170 million in the bank. In order to operate and maintain the system, each year costs about $17 million, and they want us in St. Bernard to pay an additional $2.1 million in taxes. That's ridiculous. We are paying our fair share. In fact, we're paying more than our fair share. If the costs are spread equally between all of the levee districts that are surrounded by this system, we would pay no more than 3 mills, roughly.
Due to the millage dispute, The Flood Authority has passed a resolution to turn over all drainage responsibilities to St. Bernard Parish.
The Southeast Levee Protection Authority no longer wants to operate drainage in St. Bernard Parish, but they want to collect the taxes that we're paying in for drainage in St. Bernard Parish. They want to take our citizens' taxes and fund the levee system in St. Bernard Parish. The levee system is funded by a constitutional millage. It's about 3.8 mils. It brings in about $1 million or so. But they want to take the additional $2.5 million or so and apply that to the levees in St. Bernard Parish. We feel that that money should be spent on our drainage in St. Bernard Parish. If they were willing to give us those millages, we would gladly take over the drainage system in St. Bernard Parish, and we would do a whole lot better job than they're doing.
If you drive around the parish and you look in any of the major drainage canals, not the ones that are maintained by the parish, but the ones that are maintained by this board, they're overgrown with trees. They got willow trees in them, all sorts of debris, which hinders the flow of water and puts all of us at jeopardy of flooding.
Okay, right now we're on Thelma and Santa Fe. We're looking at the 20 Orphan Drainage Canal. And the 20 Orphan Drainage Canal, we actually installed 10 new bridge crossings from Golden Drive to Volpe Drive. And the bridge crossings actually, it helps us with the increase of the flow of the drainage canals. But when you have a lack of maintenance on the vegetation that's growing in the center of the canals, it actually restricts the flow of the drainage. And I think it's part of that reason is that it's a lack of manpower right now with the Lake Borgne Basin Levee District. And we're trying to do everything we can possibly do to help them out. But they have around 60 miles of drainage canals that they actually maintain in Lake Borgne Levee District, and we actually have right about equal to that. We have in St. Bernard Parish government, we have about 60 miles of drainage canals that we maintain. So it's kind of hard for us to do 120 miles of drainage canal in parish government on the funds that we have coming in.
So we try to hit problems as they come up. I know it's never as quick as the public likes, but bottom line is it belongs to the Flood Authority, and they're getting money, taxpayer money, to maintain, and they're not. I think we got a price just to start was $1.5 million to go in and cut the grass on all of the levee boards canals from a contractor, and that's only 6 times a year, that we all know no one would be happy with. They want to give us $1.2 million, which is not enough to maintain. Canals alone were $1.5 just to cut grass. The pump stations, we came up with a price of about $600,000 just to man the stations. That's no maintenance. If we received the proper funding, I truly believe we would do a better job than what they're doing.
This is the 40 Orphan Canal. It's listed as pump station number 4, which is actually directly behind the Angelica State Subdivision in Violet. This is actually the wells that actually collects all of the trash. It's called trash rakes. As the water comes down the canal, which is full of vegetation right now, which shouldn't be there. We shouldn't have any vegetation at all in this area. And when the water comes to the pump station, all the debris and the trash that people actually throw into the canals, the stuff that's fallen into the canals, it all comes to this rake system. And if you look at this rake system as we walking down this way, you can see that they rusted out, they corroded. The chains on the top, on the sprockets, the chains is all solid. They're about to jump off. There's one over there that's off the sprocket down on the other end. If you look down up in there, you can see that piece that's on an angle over there. That actually should be going across. That picks up all the trash and the debris that comes in with the high waters. And the inside of that is the pump well. And what happens when you get a lot of this trash that builds up in the front of the trash rakes, front of the screens, you don't get enough water on the inside of the well, then the pump starts cavitating, and then from there you actually have, you have to idle the pump down to where it can pump about maybe half of the capacity instead of full capacity. If you look at this sprocket over here, take a good look at this one, how the chain actually jumped off because of the stiffness and corrosion and the wear that's on these chains. This whole system right here needs to be replaced. This system right here will probably cost about 1.2 million to replace this entire system right here.
the condition that the stations are in themselves, we did an estimate of about $5 million. That's barely scratching the surface of getting into the roots of what's wrong, because one set of rakes is over $1 million. The pumps themselves, 500 to $1 million a piece. So us taking it over in the condition it's in, based on the 1.2 or 1.5 they want to give us, million they want to give us, would start off in the negative.
This is actually the pump that goes down into the well that's attached to the engine. That's the engine, and that engine is from way back in the 60s. So this engine's it's still in operation. That's one of the older engines right next to us that we actually took out and put a brand new one in. It takes a lot of manpower on these old engines. The pump operator also has to come up here and has to read all of these gauges. You can see that there's a set of gauges up here. The pump operator has to read all of these gauges. And if you look at this engine, it's almost as old as the dinosaurs. You don't have engines anymore that you actually have to sit up here with a squirt can and all the top of these engines. And if you look back in the corner over there, you're going to see he has his oil bucket. He has a squirt can. It's 5 gallons of oil. And as you can see, these engines are very, very old.
I think SIFLA can use the $3.5 million or $4 million, whatever they're getting out of millage, to maintain the levees and the pump stations. But we got to get some relief from other parishes on the federal protection levy that's costing the residents so much. It's the first line of defense for all major cities, for all the other major cities, Jefferson, New Orleans. But we're taking the hit on paying the most, right?
We will fairly pay into the levee system and take whatever's left and provide the drainage to the drainage system, maintenance and operation to the citizens of St. Bernard Parish. That's what we want to do. But we can't allow a board to take 1 penny more than our fair share. We only have 5% of the property value in the district, but we provide 100% of their protection. You take the wall down here in St. Bernard Parish, you'll lose the city of New Orleans. You lose the flood protection. You lose flood insurance. So we either have to act as 3 separate districts like we did before the storm, or we have to move forward and protect all 3 parishes with one system.
I'm hoping that there is a peaceful and a fair and equitable resolution, and it only requires some willingness on the part of the board to treat us equally and fairly, and to really just look at how other levee districts operate throughout the state. They can take that as an example of how we should be treated down here. We should pay the same millage rate to operate and maintain the system as those taxpayers pay in Orleans and as those in Jefferson Parish pay. Everybody should be paying the same rate. Everyone protected by the system should be paying the same millage rate.
My hope in the end is that we all find a solution to this without going to courts, without having the district attorney's office involved, without having the attorney general of the state of Louisiana involved, that we can all come together, rational minds, to solve a problem, and that we can move forward in protecting the citizens of our region like they deserve. The citizens of St. Bernard Parish can be assured that we are working behind the scenes for their benefit to make sure that we're treated the right way within our region. We're not the stepchild of this region. We're one of the most important flood protection pieces of land that protects the whole region right here in St. Bernard Parish. And we're going to make sure that we're respected and treated the right way at the end of this process. But I want to assure the citizens of St. Bernard Parish, if you don't see me in the media, it's not because we're not fighting on your behalf. We're doing the right thing behind the scenes that means something. That's all we want is fairness, in St. Bernard Parish. And we cannot allow this to happen to us. So we're going to fight vigorously over our little portion of the world here and our little $3.5 million that we collect. And we're going to make sure that we get as much of that that is fair, so that we can provide the services that the citizens of St. Bernard Parish deserve. So I just want to First of all, I want to recognize Council Member McCluskey here today. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. This means a lot to him. We talk about it a lot. And without the cooperation of our council, a lot of things. What you got, John? Oh. Well, Howard's at everything we go to, so I just kind of go. Councilman Luna, thank you for coming too. We appreciate that. You was at the one Tuesday night, so thank you for coming. But I want to, before we take questions, I want to try to put it in the most simplest terms. You know, we have these discussions in the office. We had a town hall meeting, and I get a lot of advice on messaging and maybe how to say it in a simple way. It's really simple. If you think of, we have two pots of money that we're dealing with when we're talking about our flood protection: drainage and levee, right? So when we talk about the outer perimeter, we're talking about the big wall. We're talking about the Mississippi River levee, right? That's our outer perimeter. Drainage is within St. Bernard Parish, 40 of them, 20 of them, 8 pumping stations, right? So we have two pots of money. And there's $3.5 million to be put in both of those pots, right? What's happening is, right now, the Southeast Levee Protection Authority is taking $2.5 million and putting it into the outer perimeter pot, which leaves about $1 million for our drainage in St. Bernard Parish. So this discussion has nothing to do about drainage. This discussion is everything to do about how much we pay to the outer perimeter system to participate in this region, to protect our region. So fair-minded people all over the state that have levee districts and other types of funding districts across parish lines, they all pay the same millage. You know, we pay the same millages in Arabi as we do in Chalmette and Miro for our drainage. In New Orleans, if you're in Holly Grove or if you're in Lakeview, you're paying the same millage. So if we have one region, why shouldn't we all be paying the same millage? We have, if you break the 3 parishes up, we have 5% of the property value, 5% of the population. And if you have a millage, it should break out to 5%, right? So it's about $20 million of cost. Our fair share, our 100% payment to the system should be around $1 million. They're taking double of that. So if you see that pot that they have control, and we don't have any control of our own taxes, they're taking double the amount that we should be paying into that perimeter system. And what they're doing, by doing that, they're paying 1/3 of what they should be paying for our drainage, and it's creating a dilapidated drainage system for our citizens in St. Bernard Parish. And it's not right. So that's the fight. Right? So they got all of these complicated things in the middle of it, and we have 4 lawsuits filed. I think it's 4, Ronnie? So that's the pushback. We are 100% right in this situation. Think about it for a second. What we're saying is we want to pay every single penny we owe to that region. And we're willing to, if it was $3.5 million, it's $3.5 million, but it's $1 million. And our citizens over the years have voted taxes on themselves for levees and drainage. Right? And if you go back and look at the budgets of Lake Bourne levee, it's broken up around one third, 2/3, right? 1/3 for the levee, 2/3 for pumping stations. So that's the fight. Now, what started this fight? Southeast Levee Protection Authority passed a resolution. Well, let me go back. The legislature passed a law saying that is basically just for St. Bernard Parish. That levy districts can divest themselves of drainage operations within a parish. And the wording of it basically gave Southeast Levee Protection Authority the idea that they were going to pass a resolution divesting themselves of the responsibility of drainage in St. Bernard Parish, and they're going to keep all of the taxes paid into that system for the perimeter system. So how ridiculous is that, right? So what we did was we filed suit saying, well, you can't do that. There's a constitution here in Louisiana. The people have to vote on accepting your drainage system that lies within St. Bernard Parish. So we feel very confident in our legal standing to win on that case. We also have other lawsuits, filed some mandamus lawsuits that, get this, try to make them do their job, right? To cut the grass in the canals, to maintain the pumping stations. You saw that one. That's just one pumping station. We have plenty that have aspects of them that need more maintenance. I do want to say before we take some questions is that we're doing this now, right, for the protection of our citizens. We could easily back off and just say, look, that's y'all system. You deal with it, and it's not ours. We're going to sue, but what we're actively doing is trying to take over the system because it means something to our citizens. We only have a few people here tonight, right? But get 6 inches of water in your home and see this place fill up. Or we'll fill up the Superdome with people, right? So that's coming, right? I mean, that type of thing is going to come sooner or later if nothing's done. And I'm just not the type of person that's going to sit here and point fingers. I want to take, in our council, we want to take some responsibility in trying to make sure that don't happen. Now, I do want to say, this is part of the messaging that my staff wanted me to make sure that, I get out there, is that we are not in dire need of drainage. We're not in a dire situation where the pumps aren't working, they're 100 years old, like the city. Our pumping capacity is pretty much okay. We got a problem with vegetation in our canals. Our citizens are complaining of snakes and rats and those type of things. But our pumps are working. They work. A lot of times it's hard to get the water to the pumps, right? So we're fighting this fight now so that we don't have any problems in our neighborhoods with drainage. And we have a lot of time to deal with that. So I wanted to make sure that we're not trying to put it out there in a panic, but our council and our administration is forward thinking, and we want to solve problems before they become a huge problem for our citizens. Do we have any questions? Tommy? Hold on, Tom. I mean, if you don't say it in here, it's not going to get on tape. Well, I thought you raised your hand.
Yeah. Tom Nunez.
Is he on? Okay.
I'm wholeheartedly in agreement with you about not increasing any more millages. I don't think we need that to start off with. I think the voters have been spoke on that issue twice already. Before we merged with Jefferson and Orleans, in the old days when it was just the Lake Borgne Levee District, I live on Shalona Drive. Been there 48 years. I had a problem with my canal. I made a phone call. Within 2 or 3 days, they came out and took care of the problem. Did they maintain, or who maintained all these pumping stations, the gratings, the chains, and all this kind of equipment that we have over there now? Was this all maintained through Lake Borgne Levee District?
Yes, sir.
And we did this with the funding that we had at that time.
Correct.
So it looks like the problem started when we merged with Orleans and Jefferson.
Well, yes. And the reason why we merged is because the federal government built this brand new $14 billion structure for the region, and they mandated that the local governing authorities will pay for the operation, maintenance, and certification of those levees, which increased some of the cost on the outer perimeter system. So what they didn't do, Tommy, was provide a funding source for the region. And you're right. Each individual parish was handling whatever they were handling as far as levies. And let me say this at this time. It cost about $20 million that, there's estimates, give or take a few million, $20 million to operate, maintain, certify the perimeter system. They collect, St. Bernard, Orleans, and Jefferson, $60 million a year. Think about that for a second. We're sitting here as a poor parish, 5%. We provide all the protection for them, land mass and the wall, and we need a couple of million, and they have $40 million to spare. Think about that for a second. How important is St. Bernard Parish to Orleans? I'll tell you how important it is. When the water rises, they break our levees. They don't break their levees, right? They flood the Ninth Ward. They flood the crevasse. They're going to protect that city. And look, I think we all know how important the city is for this region. But there's this pushback right now politically. All politics are local. And that's what's happening. So you're right. We have and Keith said it in the piece, we have the millages. If we had this 3.5 million, we can handle the perimeter system and the pumping stations and do a good job for the citizens of this parish. We have a third of the workforce post-Katrina than we did pre-Katrina in our road department. And I don't know about water and sewer, but in our road department. We have the same amount of roads, same amount of water, same amount of sewage lines, same amount of canals. We have 60 canals. We maintain 2. And we do a decent job, I think. Our guys bust their butt every day. When the citizens call, we act. When the citizens call on Lake-Borne levee stuff, not in total, but we do a lot of Lake-Borne levee stuff, right? I know we don't do enough for you. I mean, we hear what happens on Chelona, on Missouri, on Florida. So we're doing the best we can, and our resources are stretched. And if we can always come back to, we're willing to pay our fair share and give us the rest, and we'll do the best we can. And to me, how Johnny Bradbury with CPRA or the governor don't just come in and say, this is how it's going to be. And, I think they can. But it's one of those things where, somebody very important in a room can make something happen. And they need to look at this as just a basic fairness deal, And
I got one other quick question. On the film right here, Louis Pomez was at that pumping station. Those grates, chains, sprockets, all that. Is all that equipment current right now? Is it all in that kind of condition at this time right now? And nothing has been done yet on it?
Today. It's like that today, right? So what happens is, Keith, tell me if I'm wrong, but if we have a major event where we got to make sure we keep vegetation and trash out of that pumping station, we bring a backhoe there, Keith, and constantly pulling trash away rather than the rake system working.
I think we have 2 stations and it's operational, but the other 6 have that problem.
Yep. And look, we're using our hazard mitigation money to replace 4 pumps, right? Yeah, so we're doing everything we can with our, and it's quote unquote their pumps. And I just want to reiterate my point of view in this whole thing. We're right. I'm right and I got a green light, you know, I taught driver's ed, so I'm going to use this. But if there's a car coming 100 miles an hour, I'm going to stop. You know, I don't want to get hit, right? I don't want to be dead and be right. So, and I say that because, you know, I was on the phone an hour and a half yesterday with Joe Hassinger, the guy that I'm negotiating with on behalf of the council. I want to get this thing done. And we're going to have to give up a little bit to get it done. They're going to have to give up a lot, I think, to get it done. But in my mind, we can't afford to have them operate our drainage system for another day because they just don't care. They just don't care. They have their parameters set with how funding should be, that the perimeter system is more important for the reason, not St. Bernard's drainage. You failed 2 taxes, therefore it's on you. That's what they think. And it's scary to think that we're putting our community, which is coming back so strong right now, right? We're in a renaissance that is really good for all of us living in St. Bernard Parish. Quality of life issues that we're dealing with, the property values, you know, are going up. We got this beautiful wall that a lot of people are moving back because of, right? And now we're going to worry about flooding from the inside. So I want this issue, I'm willing to negotiate as much as it takes, because if it goes through the courts, it's going to be we're going to win, but who really wins if they continue to take all of our money and put it in the perimeter system and they're not spending money on our drainage system? So, yeah. Anyone else?
Thank you, Guy. I'm John Legance. I live in Arabi. And I think you're doing a great job, you and the rest of the council and the parish administration and maintenance folks. We're definitely we're definitely taking a screwing. I'll put it in those words. And I think it's a situation where Orleans Parish and I guess Jefferson Parish, they're wanting to protect their little fiefdom that they've had for all these years with the Orleans Levy Board and all these other entities they have. They're not going to want to do the fair thing. They're not going to want to do the right thing. They've proven that now. I think they've proven it. It's very obvious. You know, it's obvious to anybody. They're willing to sacrifice St. Bernard. They've done it before. We have the proof that they've done it before, so it's easy for them to do it again. We don't have the political clout down here statewide to make this happen. I agree with you. The governor or Johnny Bradbury or somebody could fix this with the snap of their fingers. But again, we don't have the political clout. We don't have the votes. I think you need to go forward with the lawsuit. I know that's not in your nature. I know you're trying to make a good faith effort to negotiate with them in good faith and to try to resolve the issue without spending a lot of money with lawyers and a lot of time and angst in the courts. But man, look at what has happened in the past. Look at what has happened in the past and look at their performance in the past. And to me, it leaves us with no option but to go forward with the lawsuit. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be negotiating concurrent with the legal process, but I think they're stringing us along. With all due respect to you, you're trying to do it in good faith, but I think they're not.
Well,
I think that this is just going to drag on and on and on unless you take action.
But let me
through the courts. Thank you.
And maybe I don't know if I misspoke, but misrepresented. We're suing them. That's going to happen, and it's not going to cost us anything because our district attorney is doing a great job in representing us. Right? We filed 5 lawsuits within a week and a half. And the information that I've learned, and I know our staff has learned, it's incredible going back in history and what's happened. We are filing suit. I can promise you that, right? But just remember, in my mind, that's happening, and we're going to win. Just know that the lawsuit's not protecting the citizens of St. Bernard Parish. The pumping stations are protecting the citizens of St. Bernard Parish. So that's just my believe me, and I can't pull the suit by myself anyway, but if I tried to do that, I'd be shot right between the eyes. I mean, you know, that's not going to happen. I want to make sure, I'm just not going to be, you know, on the media screaming and hollering and you know, we're going to act professional, and that it's going to be good for us in the end, you know, because the governor knows he can call and not get cursed out and not get, you know, pushed up politically. And I think we're going to get help in the end. And let me tell you what's going on a little bit behind the scenes right now, but it's going to, Ray Garofalo is going to introduce a bill to effectuate exactly what we want to do, right? The millages across 3 parishes. We tried it 2 years ago. We 98 to 1 or 98 to 2. We won in the House. We go to the Senate, got killed, right? Jefferson Parish, right? Just killed it. Wanted to do a study, and CPRA was going to do a study, and that's kind of what the negotiating deal was. Ray's putting together a bill. We're going to get Wendell Curall. I don't know if you're familiar with Wendell. And Pichon, the other representative, he's no longer a representative. He's on a levy consortium. Big guy. Picard or Pichon. Anyway, 2 guys who are very well respected. And what we're going to do is we're going to sell this bill around the state to the senators individually. We're going to go meet with them and let them know what's going on, right? So we're trying everything, right? We're hoping that the mandamus makes them do some work, and they got to spend some of that $40 million that's laying around, right? So
I'm just encouraging you to continue doing what you're doing.
we're going to fight the good fight, I promise you.
And don't back down from them, because I don't trust them as far as I could throw you. Okay, and so
That's not false, I promise you.
no, I don't trust them at all. And
I'm a lot heavier than what I look,
they've
too.
proven it. They're not
Right.
worthy of trust.
I'm with you. Questions? None? Anything I missed? Ronnie, tomorrow you're going to say, Guy, you didn't say this or that? John? Well, I haven't spoken to the council yet, and I get in trouble when I say things and I haven't talked to them yet. But I'm going to say it anyway. I'll get in trouble again. What the hell? What I'm going to ask the council to do Tuesday is pass a resolution asking for an efficiency audit from the Louisiana legislative auditor of their whole operation, non-flood and flood, because that's the reason why they put it together. And if we're not creating efficiencies, then that's, you know, Tim and I had talked about that, and Tim advises me as much as he can as far as the inner workings of that organization. But John, that's a great question, because that's, you know, if I'm the governor, if I'm somebody that it means something, and I'm looking at this budget, just the 40 million, 20 million, police force, whatever they got going on in the city, and you know, whatever it is, they're used to, so they don't want to give it up. But, you know, if all it takes is for Orleans and St. Bernard to sign an agreement to move $2 million over, like, you know, why can't that happen? I mean, that's ridiculous, you know. Ronnie?
We talk about, we have 60 miles an hour. But I think I'd like to let the people know there's a lot more that we do for them than being said. Besides cutting grass for them and cleaning out the rates, and there's a lot of things that we're doing on our end.
The question is so everybody can hear, because they can't hear you right now. The question is, what are we doing now on Lake Borgne Levee District's behalf on a daily, monthly basis?
Currently, we're handling all of the dead-end barriers, which is at the end of every street. And we couldn't even guess how many streets we have dead ends on the 40, the 20 Arpent, as well as on the new extension. We're maintaining, we went and helped them move a floating island out of the canal that was right in front of the pump station. Our operator used their equipment, but it was our operator who went and did the work. We're trying the best we can to help out. I truly believe that we'll do a better job. My fear is, being Public Works, is that we get it in the condition it's in. Because the first time something fails, the budget's blown. We have no budget to do anything else. And I think that's the most important for me from an operation standpoint.
Pass it to him when you finish. When you finish.
Okay. No,
No, but we need it though, is what I'm saying.
I guess what I'm saying, I'm just amazed at this film and looking at that pumping station and seeing the condition that pumping station was in. That didn't happen overnight. That's been going on for a long time. Why wasn't that situation addressed either by you guys or by the administration? Someone should have addressed that situation a long time ago before it got to that situation.
No, you're right, Tommy. You know, and I don't know if they fixed all of those pumps after the storm. No, so.
The pumps
Right.
don't, maybe
Not the
one
pumps,
thing,
but
I'm talking
this
about
is the rake
the
system,
rakes
right?
and
Right,
the
but-
chains and the sprockets and all.
But you're right, but
mechanical stuff.
that question, Tommy, needs to go to Southeast Levee Protection Authority.
We had to have inspectors over there, we had to have our people over there and saw it. No one saw this equipment get into this condition before it was reported. Somebody had to see this, Keith.
I can agree with you, but we've been fighting this. We've been here for 2 years and 10
Yeah.
months. We've been fighting it for 2 years somewhere. This has been going on for a long time.
Ronnie, you want?
I know Keith said some of the things that we do, but, you know, and Guy never mentioned it earlier, how, you know, they have a lot less people that's working down here for Lake Borgne Levee District than they had in the past. We do things right now like when it rains, we have a system in place that we get on the phone and we start making sure that they have guys manning pumping stations. If they're not, we go behind them and we go out to the pumping stations and we're out there to do that, to help them in the system. There's a lot of things like that, cutting grass on certain canals, where we can get to if we have the equipment to do it sometimes. We don't have the equipment that they have or they're supposed to have in certain areas to cut certain canals. We do what we can. We got Councilman Luna on his own personal lawnmower out there cutting grass for them. So there's a lot of things that we're doing because we don't have the fund. Like I said, we have the funding for when we do a pretty good job with the 60 miles we keep up. But for what they have to do, we're trying to supplement as much as we can to get them. A lot of times, you know, we complain they come from New Orleans with equipment. They have to come from the city. It's not even down here anymore where it's at. So that's
I had Orleans Parish machine out there cutting on Shalom Canal.
exactly, and that's some way. And to answer your question earlier, and I think Keith did. Guy said that question's for them. Yes, it's their equipment. It's the things that they've done. It's the funding that they have to keep it up. And your question, it's the right question. You know, they should be here taking care of that.
Rick, I think your point is well taken. You don't want to take responsibility for any of this equipment, the operation and maintenance of this equipment. You don't want to turn it over to you until it's in good shape. You don't want to get it in the condition it's in now. I've been in your shoes in a past lifetime, but man, don't as part of this whole settlement, whatever vehicle it takes to get there, we gotta make them make this thing right before you stick Rick with it and St. Bernard Parish with it. Ron,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Ron.
Okay, Rick.
Did I? Keith,
That's all right, John.
I apologize to you.
No,
Keith. Let me give this microphone now over to Michael Duty.
All right, my name's Tim Duty. But to address some of what you were talking about, as you can see, those pump stations and the rakes are very, very old. When I was on the board until 2013, and they were in the best shape that they could possibly be in for their age at that time. Shortly after I got off the board, they proposed a millage increase down here, not once, but twice, and we voters turned it down. At that time, sometime around 2014, I'm guessing, they laid off quite a few people. Many of those people formerly worked in the pump stations, maintaining the rakes, maintaining the pumps, and they just got rid of them. And in my estimation, that was retribution for not passing a tax increase. I believe personally that if it all gets settled and St. Bernard does take over the pumping operations and the drainage, there needs to be a millage increase. And with that millage increase, perhaps we could bond it out and we could, modernize the pumps. We need to do something. I hear what you're saying, do with $10 what you need $1 million to do. But Bob Turner was doing with baling wire and ropes and everything as much as he could do. If you traveled around and saw the conditions of other parishes' pump stations, you would not want the pump stations to be in the condition they're in right now. It takes money to do things. Everybody understands that. And I mean, if you have an idea of how much money is needed, I would love to know the answer to that question. Do you know?
No, I have no idea.
Okay.
Really, truthfully, my point is, when it was the Lake Bourne Levy District, I'm sorry. My point is, when it was the Lake Bourne Levy District, that's what I said before. They were maintaining them. They were all in good shape. The grates were working. Everything was working with the millage that we had coming in. It was all being taken care of. It looked like the problem here that I'm seeing is when we joined with Orleans, or when we were forced to go with Orleans and Jefferson, that's when the neglect started.
No, Tommy, what happened was when we failed the 2 millages that they put before us, they basically said, we're finished with drainage at St. Bernard, basically, and said they laid off half of the operators and stopped maintaining the system in 2013 or 2014, whenever the millages came up.
As council members, we field a lot of the complaints, and residents don't recognize levy district from St. Bernard Parish. They just recognize high grass and problems and an obvious impedance to what protects their home. So I guess if there's one thing that I want to add to this conversation, and President McInnis is an infinitely better politician than I am, and sometimes I'm a little hot-headed. So I just asked the members of this panel to pass the sleep test. Can you sleep at night knowing that you're being so trivial about such an obvious and fair solution? And all we're asking for in St. Bernard Parish is to do the right thing. And it's plain and simple. The economics are obvious. And even despite the fact that if we were to get to the correct financial agreement with the levy district, it's still going to be a struggle for us to maintain what they're asking us to maintain. We're getting these pumps in disrepair, and it's a lot of work that needs to be done just to maintain the drainage canals. So,
But John,
I'm asking them to pass the sleep test.
Yeah, let me talk about repairing or bringing the pumps up to par. There's some hazard mitigation money out there that we are actively seeking that may pay for the upgrade, not upgrade, but just to bring all the pump systems up to par. Fixing all the grates, making sure all the pumps are updated, canal scraping, and bringing them to the proper elevations. We got some places where the water's got to go uphill. So just know that we are, on our own behalf, are seeking those hazard mitigation monies. The governor has been very, very helpful. Johnny Bradbury is very, very helpful in that effort. So they're helping us to try to get the money to make sure, whether we take them over or not, we're doing all of this. Not Southeast Levee Protection Authority. We're doing this. Keith and Louis have been working very hard on putting that priority list together. It's probably going to be over $10 million or so. We won't get that much, but we'll get, I'm hoping we get a fair portion of that. But every day, when we come to work every day, we're fighting on the citizens' behalf to make sure that whatever happens in this scenario, that we come out ahead and that we don't get screwed like we have often in the past. So, and like Keith said, we got on this early. We saw this coming early. Tim let us know what was going on very early in our administration, and we've been on this since day one. So we just felt like, obviously, with the resolution that they passed, that this was the time to file lawsuits, start educating the community, and moving forward, you know. So there's going to be a point, there's going to be a breaking point with the council members where they're just going to say, you know, I'm tired of this grass being in these ditches. We're going to clean them. We're going to do whatever. Let's find the money. You know, something's going to happen sooner or later because we represent our people. And we're trying to do it the best way and proper steward of the funds and get back some of our funds so we could do it with the proper taxes. But I can tell you, you know, if I have a meeting about these canals, Luna's going to be there. McCluskey's going to be there. Calais going to be there. Alcon's going to be there. Montelongo. Look, I mean, all of the council members are getting hit on a daily, and us too, but it's the council members that get hit, right? So, and you know, it's gonna work in the end, and but I think you're right. You know, we're battling people who are not honest in a lot of different ways, and we're gonna good always prevails, John.
I
You know?
agree with you, and I applaud everything you guys are doing and everything Keith's doing. But again, like you said, and I've said it before, beware of the people that you're negotiating with. I don't think they're negotiating in good faith.
Two things. When you're negotiating with them, I mean, you said you know what's fair and what's right, and you know, an equal apportionment of the millage is the right thing. Other than that, I don't know what there is to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about.
Well, as far as negotiating goes, if we're going to get less than that, you know, like John said, I think I'd take my chances in the court because the court has to decide in our favor because, like you said, we're right. But the second thing is, as you all are cleaning their canals, I don't know why you wouldn't just send them a bill. And even though they're not going to pay it, continue to send those bills so that if the court case does get decided, that'll be an additional thing.
I think that's part of the mandamus anyway. David put together all that information.
Okay. And then the final thing is, I know that the levee authority has agreed to take over the pump stations at the 3 outfall canals. Yep. We have a pump station that's on the perimeter system too, and my question is, are they maintaining that one like they would be maintaining the 3 outfall canals, which is on the perimeter system?
You mean after the agreement?
No, now. I mean, if they've agreed
They're operating all of them. I don't know what you...
Well, yeah, perhaps after the agreement.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because right now they're operating all of them.
Well, they're operating all of them in disrepair.
We want them all.
I understand what you're saying.
I know the point you're trying to make is that they say they don't do drainage anywhere else, but they're doing drainage in Orleans. I understand that point. All I'm worried about, Tim, is that our citizens have their elected officials working on their behalf every day to make sure that they don't get water in their homes because of some drainage malfunctions, and that we're not so hard-headed that we're just going to point fingers and let it happen.
I agree, and I echo what John said. Thanks for doing what you're doing.
Thanks.
I got a couple questions. The first one is, when we talk about the SLFPA board that is making that decision on where the money is being spent and how much of their money that they're using, like when we talk about the $40 million, how is that? What is that board made up of as far as people and representatives? Is that equal across the regions, or is that just appointed individuals?
Can you explain that for me?
It's a 9-member board appointed by the governor, 1 representative from East Jeff, Orleans, and St. Bernard, and the rest of, well, no, Tangipahoa too, and the rest of them are at-large members. Okay. Does that answer your question?
So does that mean that we need to try to push to get more at-large members? Like, are we participating enough to get those members on there? Or are we just not getting appointed, I guess?
Well, we had one appointment when we came in, and we appointed Clay Kosay from St. Bernard Parish. That's the St. Bernard representative. When Tim was on the board, the executive director was from St. Bernard Parish. We had Mr. Stopenau from St. Bernard Parish. We had Tim, who was the chairman, from St. Bernard Parish. And we still couldn't get it done at that time, right? So it's a battle, it's a battle, Justin, that is outside of that board's control, and it's all local. And it's Jefferson Parish, because if you look at that breakdown of taxes, it's Jefferson Parish who's going to have to pay a little bit more. And that's where just the reality of that situation is where it falls in. And then there's some people along the 17th Street Canal, right? That the board had taken, they say they'd taken some of their property for the protection of that levee, and they're very upset about that too, right? So there's a lot of things going on politically, and that's why we say the governor can do something about it, because he appoints every single one of them.
My other question and then sort of statement is, as far as the canals, is there like a map that's available to the citizens that's like online or posted that people can be aware? Okay. And then the other thing is, given the fact that most of the politicians and people that are in power drive through this beautiful parish to go hunting and fishing on a very regular basis, why don't we put some sort of visual signs out there that say this ditch is maintained by St. Bernard Parish, and on the ditches that are maintained by SLFPA, we put a sign that goes through there. That way when people are driving and they're going to people's houses and they see, I live on Shalona, you could have a sign right there that says, these ditches are maintained by SLFPA, and then people can see. Huh?
Yeah, not maintained.
Yeah, sorry. Not
Right.
maintained. But
Well,
you get what I'm saying? Is
no,
that
that's-
it would bring attention to
that's
those
a great
people that
idea.
are coming down here.
Ronnie, you got to make that happen. Yeah. No, Justin, that is a great idea.
Yeah, 'cause
And,
I mean, I think everyone knows that a lot of people come to this parish to enjoy themselves. So, as far as the fair share goes, I mean, there's nothing to enjoy if this place is flooding and you can't drive down the road to go hunting or fishing or whatever it is that you want to do.
Perfectly said. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. That's an action item, Ronnie. All right. We're good? Thank you guys for coming. And I wish there were more people here, but this is so important to our community. I want to thank our staff for being here tonight. And Tim, thank you so much for everything you're doing. And good night. Hey.